All right, welcome back to the channel. Yes, today we are back on the Olds Toronado XS project, a barn find car that hasn't been on the road in over 2 decades. So we got to fix a massive fuel leak underneath the hood before the car burns to the ground. We've got a massive oil leak from one of the valve covers. We're going to address that too. And we've got absolutely no brakes whatsoever in the car, so we're going to at least get some brakes in it. And once we do that, we're going to try and take it up the road for a little bit of a test drive here and see if she actually moves and stops under her own power. So without wasting time, let's get into the video. All right, so let's make ourselves a fuel line. See if I can get this fitting off. Get that nut separated from the rest of that twisted line. Okay, looks like we got keep going bigger and bigger, I guess. Smoking. There we go. Ooh, that doesn't look very good. All right, so here's the progress on the fuel line. I actually started flaring the tube nut on first, but then realized that I couldn't get in here close enough to make the right size or the right angle bend. So I'm gonna just leave a little bit extra and put the tube nut on, cut it down, and then have the nut on. So you can see the other line, the old line here. This is kind of what we're looking at here. So the old line will run like that, and this is kind of going down like that. And so, yeah, I'll cut that off once I put the tube nut on there and flare it. Use a vice grip and the bench vise technique again to clamp that flaring tool, but we're almost there. I don't really remember where the end of this stopped, so we're gonna have to figure that out as well. But here is the progress so far. All right, I'm having a hell of a time trying to flare this 3/8 steel line with my cheapy, crappy flaring tool. So I've got the bar now chucked up in the vise, and this is cranked really tight. I got a vice grip on each end. I've done the initial flare. I'm hoping this comes out okay, but this is kind of what I'm looking for. That is not what I'm able to achieve. It's like half that. So this is the reference piece. Let's see if the trick here does it. A buddy of mine told me to do this. He's an actual auto mechanic, unlike myself, just a weekend hack guy. So let's see if it's going to hold that line, because I mean, this is just as tight as I'll get it in this bar right here. I think that's about good. So let's take a look here. I'll get it all apart. Yeah, kind of starting to look like a line here. Angles are kind of similar. I gotta figure it out. This end part here, as I mentioned, I don't know where exactly that's gonna go, but yeah, it's kind of looking similar. Not easy with the cheap tools that I have. There's the other end there. Not bad. Close enough. So I decided at this point to stop for a second and test fit this and see how this flare, which I don't like, seals on the seat. So I got my new fuel pump now. Let's just tighten that up there and see how this flare seals. So excuse the messy workbench here, but check it out. This is now tight. There's absolutely no sealing on there. It's because this flare that I made is like a single flare. It's not a double flare. It's really hard to make a double flare with one of these things. This is just a $35 flaring tool, and it works with smaller diameter steel brake line like 1/4 inch, but it just doesn't want to work very well with this 3/8 stuff. And the problem is that I can't clamp this well enough in the vise, and the tube just keeps moving. I showed you in that other clip, you know, I'm actually wrapping it in stainless steel lock wire, which is 20 thou, wrapping it and holding it with the lock wire around it just to keep it from moving, but there's no double flare there. So I've got this material, which you'll say that doesn't look like steel. It's not. It's aluminum. Not ideal. I'd rather have steel, but this will hold 25 psi. That's what it's rated for. So now I'm going to try and do a double flare here and test fit that on the carburetor, or sorry, on the fuel pump. First, I got to take this nut off, and this is going to get thrown out, this piece of steel line. Okay, so here is the aluminum double flare. It looks a lot better. Look how thick that is. That's what's going to seal between the nut and the seat. If I move that nut down, yeah, it looks a lot better. Of course, I'll clean that out as best I can. And you may be saying, oh, well, you're using a steel nut and an aluminum line. Yeah, I am, because this is what I got to deal with right now. I guess an aluminum nut would probably be best, but it is what it is. So let's tighten that up into the fuel pump now and see what happens. Okay, now this is installed and it's pretty snug. I can't rotate that at all. So that's going to definitely seal on there. I think the aluminum's going to work well, because if I tighten this, I'll just conform it to that seat a little bit. I don't want to go too much though, because aluminum can crack. But then again, so can the steel if you bend it more than a little bit. So we'll keep building the line out of the aluminum here and see how all this goes back together on the car. I do need to get some 1/4 inch line. I have 5/16, but this return to the tank is 1/4 inch. So I got to grab a little bit more rubber and put it all together, and then we'll see how the fuel pump works.
Well, that fuel line was a pain in the butt, and I'll show you what I ended up with here. So we got the new pump in. Of course, all this had to come off, the AC compressor, these brackets. And then you can get the fuel pump out, because it's got that long arm, and that arm's like, I don't know, 8 inches long. There's no push rod for the fuel pump like a small block Chevy where you tighten a bolt and hold the push rod in place. This long arm goes all the way in and touches, rides on an eccentric on the front of the camshaft. So everything has to come off so that whole pump can shoot this way. Anyways, we got the pump in, and my flaring tool sucks. So I couldn't get a double flare to save my life on the steel line. So I ended up using the original steel line here, and I flared the edge of it, or the end of it, as much as I could. Rubber now down to another fitting in here, which is actually aluminum line. But I didn't like the aluminum line running the whole distance. It just seemed like there's too much area or vibration. So I got another little bit of aluminum line in here. Then you can see the brand new pump, and you got brand new fuel line going down to the frame rail. So there's where we ended up. Oh, also in here, I replaced the fuel filter in the Rochester here. So everything up here is now pretty decent. This isn't permanent for the rest of the car's life, but it'll do for now. All right, so now that we have a fuel system back in the car, before I run it anymore, I want to get the oil out of this car, because I don't know how old the oil is. It felt pretty good, but I do want to change on the oil. It's probably got a lot of penetrant in there when I was trying to get that distributor out and hosing penetrant down through that valley in the back there of the block. And then we're going to get the front end up off the ground, of course, to do the oil change, and I'll pull the wheels off. We'll take a look at the brakes in there. With that new Master, it feels like I've got some brake pedal, so I want to do a gravity bleed at least on the brakes while the thing's up in the air and get some front brakes back in the car. And then we can put some timing into it and let it run for a while and just see how well this thing runs. It's never really gotten off high idle. It started to come down, so I'd like to get her running, and then we'll be able to move the car around and put her into the garage. And once in the garage, I'll be out of the cold, out of the wet, and we can keep working on it. So there's the oil pan drain plug. That might be the largest drain plug I've ever seen in my life. That thing's got to be 3/4 or 1 inch. Okay, turns out it's 7/8. That is a big, ooh, that's not even on there that tight. That is a big old drain plug. Never in my life have I seen one that big, but hey, I've never worked on an Olds Toronado before. Okay, careful position here. Let's see what we got coming out. It's probably gonna go straight down actually. Yeah, based on where the angle of the, or the non-angle. Yeah, I like that actually, straight down. So out with the old oil, and while we're waiting for that to drain, we can go ahead and pull a wheel off. Look at that trans pan. It's been leaking tranny fluid for a long time. Just look at it, it's caked on the back of that area where the chain runs. But little survey under the car while we're waiting for the oil to drain. Catalytic converter is absolutely destroyed. It doesn't leak. There's no exhaust leaks there, but as we go back, yeah, these are a little bit crusty, but there's no holes in the floor that I can see yet, so keep on working. Okay, easy. Wheel wasn't frozen. Well, with the wheel off, we can easily see where the oil filter is, but like everything else, it wants to be part of the car forever. So I can't loosen that off, so we're gonna go in with a screwdriver and punch a hole in there. At least there's access in their fender well here. Otherwise, from underneath, there's very little access between, you can see the CV shaft flange and then the starter back there. It's just really challenging. So we're gonna get to work removing this with more force. Okay. She's moving a bit now. Yeah, there we go. So I had to put 2 holes in that thing, but I think I can get in there now by hand or using this deal, and that should come off. Yes. Success. Well, there's how you take off a really, really stubborn oil filter. You just gotta punch a hole in it. The old flathead. Ooh, drop it into the bucket. But yeah, oil filter is off. So we're gonna go with a Wix filter on this deal, and some Pennzoil 10W30. There we go, brand new Wix. Gotta find where it goes. Aiming forward. There we go. This one, I'm not gonna reef on there. I'm just gonna put it on hand tight. Just like that. Okay, oil is filled. Now let's work on those brakes. All right, moment of truth on the front bleeder here. Oh yeah, somebody likes me. So our bleeder is loose, and we're just gonna gravity bleed away here. So I can hook this guy up here. Should fit over the brake bleeder. Yeah, you get the idea. And then we're gonna let that gravity bleed. We might get someone also inside the car to help me out. So the first attempt didn't work at all. So now we've cleaned the timing mark. We want 20 degrees before top dead center is what the sticker on the fender says. And then to make life easier, we're gonna go in there and try and remark the white line here on the balancer.
Okay, she's pretty much right on 20 degrees before top dead center. Probably really lazy because that's the way the factory set these things. And I've got a different distributor in there out of a totally different car. I think this is out of a Trans Am, but look at it, she's idling.
Yeah, she's a little better. I think there's something actually a little wonky with the linkage. And there might be another vacuum leak still, but idling a lot better. Using my cell phone here. I don't see any major cooling leaks yet. She's still getting up to temperature. Sounds pretty good. Timing is pretty decent again. Just do a quick wrap here. Spools right up. Let's see how she starts. So key off and back on. Starts right up. I think she's happy there with timing for now. So let's look at those brakes. All right, push it all the way to the floor. Is it all the way to the floor? Just a sec. Okay, lift up. Okay, push it down the floor again. Hold it there. Lift up. Push it down on the floor again. Not getting anything out of this bleeder here.
All right, well, you saw in that last clip that there's absolutely nothing. I mean, zero, zilch, nothing coming out of that bleeder on that passenger side caliper, or that right front caliper, as they would say. I got some thoughts on where that problem is going to be. But you can see we got the car in the garage because I don't want to work in that gravel anymore. It is a bit warmer outside. It is another day, but it's windy and there's downpour. There's an atmospheric river basically sitting right on top of us, and this is just a little bit of a calm period. So we managed to get her in the garage. I had to 2-foot this thing. Transmission fluid actually it needs, because it's freewheeling a little bit, and with a little bit of RPM it kind of lurches into gear. So I got to get some ATF in this thing. We did see underneath the car that rear cover over that chain drive that looked really caked in oil. Well, those are prone to leak. I think I need to reseal that. That's pretty easy job to do, I think, with it in the car. But anyhow, we're in the garage. We're going to go after the brakes. We're going to try and get some fluid going to the caliper on the passenger side here. Yeah, I think it's the rubber line. Those rubber lines like to collapse and constrict over time. So I'm going to go with the rubber line. So I'm going to work my way from the caliper back to the master, because we know the master's brand new. We know the master's got fluid in it. So let's get into that. And here's something interesting as I was jacking up the car. That right there and that right there. So the sway bar end link, you can see the sway bar snapped, because as you're lifting one side only, putting a lot of load, and you're actually activating the sway bar, or twisting the sway bar. So we busted that end link, and it's sitting right on the steering shaft there. So I'm gonna have to put end links in it, but I mean, everything in this car, all the rubber is going to be like that. So add one more thing to the list. Let's get after that rubber line. So there's a steel line right there.
And that's what I'm worried about, that breaking. So we're going to use a little heat, and we're going to use a lot of WD-40 or penetrant. Let's see if we can get that steel line off and start, then we'll blow some air. Once we get that rubber line off, if we can get the steel line off, we'll blow some air through there and see if that's our problem. All right. First attempt. Okay. Here's the challenge, other than filming. You can see now I got that broken loose, but my line wants to spin with it. We do not want that line to spin with it. Ooh, it might actually be going. I got to hold that line a bit. So I got to put you down and hold the line, but that's what we want to work on there. Maybe a bit more penetrant. Get that in there. See if we can work that free. All right, success. You can see now this thing is loose. That nut is actually loose, and all seems to be going well. And another thing which is good is I've got brake fluid now coming out of that line. So maybe my suspicions of this, it's going to go back and forth like that. Maybe my suspicions of this bad rubber line are true. And if I change that rubber line, maybe I'm going to get some brakes back on this side here, and then I'll do the same on the other side if it needs it. But definitely good. We've got brake fluid coming out of there, meaning we've got no or very little blockage anyways up to this point. The rubber line is coming off, and I got brand new ones to go on. Well, as luck would have it, this line here is the original one for sure. It's got a big bracket which bolts underneath the upper ball joint. So I got to take the upper ball joint nut off. I've already successfully gotten rid of a cotter pin. So we got to take that off, and then that whole bracket can come down, and then we can get this line off because it's disconnected here already from the car. Now it's loose from the caliper. Yeah, fun stuff. So hopefully this thing comes loose. Hopefully I can get that bracket off without spinning the shaft in the tie rod, or sorry, the upper ball joint shaft. That would not be good because I don't want to put ball joints in this thing right now, but look at how much goo that is. Like, and that's, I mean, she's been serviced. That is like, ugh, disgusting. So let's just pretend we don't see that. Move on to that nut. Yes, nut is off. I really probably need a jack underneath here, but we're going to be super quick. So now you can see how that bracket comes off. Let's move that out of the way real quick. I'll whip this nut back on. Gotta get this on ASAP. Okay, nut's on. So there's no risk of this exploding. I mean, there's no spring or strut in here, but there is a torsion bar. It's torsion bar front suspension. So I don't know, maybe I got lucky on that side. But anyway, we got this bracket now basically loose. I just have to spin it out of the caliper. Let's see if there's any way for fluid to flow through here. I'm going to put some air into this line and see how it is. All right, so here's our line. We got some air, and we're going to try and we'll go from the caliper side out. Try to see if we can get anything out of here. Nothing. Like, there's zero coming out of the other end. Try the other way. It just blows back out this way. So this line is completely frozen, stuck, really blocked. And that makes sense too, because as I was loosening this line off of the caliper I could actually feel release, like it was seized. So there's actually, what was happening was there was fluid pressure in the caliper, and when their foot wasn't on the brakes, it wasn't allowed to go back into the line, back into the system, back into the master cylinder. So
all that pressure released. You could feel that caliper just sort of relaxing itself. So the culprit right here, hopefully this is the only thing on this side. I'm going to replace the line. The bracket. So this bracket basically clamps on to this end here and connects underneath that upper ball joint. So I'll have to take the ball joint off again once we get this onto the new line. Put the new line in, and then maybe we'll get some fluid coming through, and gravity itself will show us if we got some fluid at the bleeder of the caliper. Okay, so we got our line in, all hooked up, and now we've got fluid at the caliper. So go ahead and push the brakes. There we go. Look at that. Fluid coming out of the caliper. Okay, lift off. And it's kind of partially bled, but it's good enough for now. We're going to go do the other side, and then we're going to spend more time bleeding once we at least get fluid flowing through the brake lines to the calipers. All right, now we got fluid to the passenger side caliper, which is great. It was that rubber line. It was totally blocked. We did a bit more bleeding, so theoretically we've got now one wheel, or we do have one wheel that has brakes on this old girl. A little easier now to move it in and out of the garage. Before it was just so sketchy, and I had to clear everything out of the driveway and make sure there's nothing in my way. Working in the gravel in the rain is terrible. It's actually pouring rain out there right now. It is coming down in buckets. So glad to be in the garage. Way easier to work on this thing. So we're going to go do the driver's side front now and see where the problem is there. Hopefully it's just the same thing. It's just the rubber line. I'm going to replace it anyways. But I haven't even cracked a bleeder yet, so I have no idea what to look for there, but it's basically going to be the same as this side. So we'll come back in the next clip with hopefully front brakes on this car, and then we'll start working on the rear.
Running pretty darn good. Chased another vacuum leak down, which was way at the back of the carburetor, but yeah, she's running really good. Nighttime tuning. Super choked exhaust. 5 mile long muffler with like a huge catalytic converter in there. Huge leaky valve cover problem all fixed up. Should have filmed it, didn't. Maybe this is my short, I don't know. One little exhaust leak deal over here. Yeah, it's been running for like 25 minutes. Mint.
Okay, driver's side, again, much like the passenger side, we ended up replacing that brake hose, and you guessed it, that was plugged 100% just like the passenger side. So now with 2 new hoses in there, we've got some front brakes on this thing. We did a little bit more bleeding, and it's not bad, but there's so much corrosion and crap on the discs or on the rotors that I'm going to have to break those in a little bit, and I don't want to do that with a 4,800-pound car in my residential neighborhood here. So I got an idea, and this is what we're going to do to kind of get that rust off the rotors. All right, so let's yank a wheel off, or let's say both. Now, I've never tried this, but let's start the car and put it in drive, and then just use the brakes and just see if we can clean these off. And then we'll go on the road and see how it goes. All right, start her up. All right. She's running. Let's see what happens here. On the passenger sides, if it's turning like this. Oh yeah, speedometer cable noisy. I can hear that in the car. We're doing 50 miles an hour right now.
Maybe ride the brake a bit. There you go. A little brake clean on there. Besides the one that's the drive wheel, it looks like. Should have probably put something underneath the brake clean on the driveway, but all right. Oh, car wasn't moving and I thought we were actually in park, but that was the parking pin. Yeah, so that's good enough for now. Now, well, I think we got some of the crap off. I mean, definitely a bit of heat in that rotor, which is good. So we're gonna rebed these pads, so to speak. Hopefully that's enough. So put the tires on, and it's a nice sunny day. Maybe I'll just go up the street and back real quick. See how that works. Work these wheels back up. Torque left to go for a drive. Maybe those cops are coming for me. I don't know. Well, that was a pretty successful little drive up the street there, I'd have to say. The front brakes, they're okay. I mean, they need to come around. They need to get more bedding in time and more use just to get that rust off there and get those pads to come back to life. But they feel fairly solid, so there's no air in the system. I'm going to change the rear brake line or rear hose between the main line and the rear wheels. I know that's going to probably be seized because the front ones were. Mind you, I did see in that video, maybe you saw it too, I think I saw the rear brakes lock up a little bit, so who knows, it could be partially seized. I got new rear wheel cylinders for the rear. I'm going to put them in as well and go over the shoes. So that's the next thing I want to do before I take this for a real drive. The engine seems to run pretty good when I get on it. It'll spin the tires, but these tires are super old. I mean, they look decent from the outside, but if you pay close attention, they're cracked and everything, and they're hard, and who knows how old they are, so no wonder they spin. But yeah, anyways, pretty successful little drive there, I must say. Next thing will be going through the rear brakes and replacing as little as possible, but as much as we need to make it safe. And that's the next video. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do like the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. That's a big thing. Keeps me going, keeps me able to put videos on old cars like this out. And I gotta say, this bumper is the most comfortable bumper I've ever sat on. This is even more comfortable than sitting on a tailgate of a truck. So if you ever have one of these cars, maybe it's a classy tailgate machine. I don't know. But anyways, take care. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Perfect timing, because now it's basically starting to hail. Gotta love West Coast 604 weather.